Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Markets at a Grand series. My name is Rufus Kamau, Markets Analyst at FX Pesa. So on today, we'll be looking at the key market developments that have happened this afternoon as we head into the New York session. We know that the US Producer Price Index data report just came out at 3:30 p.m. Of course, there were big differences with what was expected and what we saw. So we'll be looking into that, try to understand how it's impacting the markets. We'll also be doing some technical analysis to understand what might be different, what are the key prevailing market structures. And once we understand that, then hopefully everyone will trade from an informed perspective. So as usual, this session is not investment advice. It is not a recommendation to trade, so you should always do your own due diligence. So if you have any questions, feel free to type that in the live comment section, and I'll be responding to that on the go. So hello, Jason, and thank you for joining the session. So let's jump straight into the economic calendar, and this is what we have on Forex Factory. So earlier on in the day, in the morning, we had wage price index data coming in from Australia, where we had a slight miss at 0.8%, meaning that wages are not growing as fast. So in this case, the price of wages, not the wages themselves. Then we had a very important job market report from the UK, which showed that the number of people claiming for unemployment insurance increased by 135K in the last month of July. And this was a big difference from the expected 14.5K and the previous reading of 36.2K. So average earnings increased by 4.5% quarter over year. This was a big miss. Apologies for that. We expected to see 4.6%, and it's still a significant drop from the previous reading of 5.7%. Whereas there was a big surprise in the unemployment rate data, where UK unemployment dropped to 4.2% in the month of July. And this was a big drop from the previous reading of 4.4%. Meaning that the UK is having a much healthier job market, but the claimant count change was the big surprise. So it was a mixed data report. We'll be looking shortly at how the market reacted to that. So this afternoon, fast forward, the core producer price index had no change in the month of July. For producer price index, overall, there was a 0.1% increase. And if you go deeper and you look at the year-over-year changes, then for core producer price index, there was a drop to 2.4%, down from the previous 3%, meaning that the US is winning on the battle against inflation. So remember, producer price index is a forward measure of what consumers might expect in the near future. So in this case, by looking at factories and the prices they are paying, then you know that that burden is going to be forwarded to consumers. So in this case, we're expecting a much bigger drop in CPI, which is likely indicating that the US may go for a rate cut in the September meeting. So with that in mind, also we have a couple of more things coming up in the economic calendar, and that's from tomorrow. So early in the morning at 5 a.m., if you are awake at this time, you should expect to see some increased volatility in New Zealand dollar pairs, as the Reserve Bank of New Zealand will be looking to make an interest rate decision. So in this case, they are expected to be holding interest rates at the current level of 5.5%, which is something that they have maintained ever since the month of May last year. So they have held interest rates at 5.5%. So we'll be looking to see if they follow the trend of other global central banks, which have been fast-tracking rate cuts, as a majority of them are winning the battle against inflation. So later on at 9 a.m., we'll be having inflation data from the UK. We know that in the previous 2 months, we saw inflation remaining at 2% target, which was the target of the Bank of England. So following that, we saw the Bank of England going for their first rate cut. So in this case, at 2%, we're expecting a surprise increase to 2.3%. Of course, the market will be looking to react to that. So inflation staying low around 2% would be healthier for the Bank of England to keep on cutting interest rates, and that should be weakening for the GBP. But if inflation jumps higher, then that could slow down the Bank of England, and that would mean a much stronger pound. So later on, we'll be having one of the most anticipated data points, which is the measure of inflation in the US. So as of the previous reading, the CPI inflation was at 3%. We don't expect much of a change. So we're expecting that inflation remained at 3% in the month of July. So we'll be looking to react to that information. There will be crude oil inventories at 5:30 p.m. and of course, two speeches from Reserve Bank of New Zealand Governor Adrian Orr at 9 and 10:30 p.m. So fast forward in the week, we'll get a job market report from Australia. We'll be getting GDP data from the UK, and this is on Thursday. And then we'll be looking at retail sales as well as core retail sales from the US, as well as the weekly unemployment claims at 3:30 p.m. on Thursday. Then another speech from Reserve Bank of Australia, Governor Bullock. Then retail sales from the UK before we end the week with preliminary University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey. So clearly, the most anticipated data of the week will be happening tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. I believe this will be the key driver of key market movements over the rest of the week. So now that that's behind us, we can now jump to a couple of assets, try to understand their movements before we understand the market structures. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the comment section and I'll be responding to those questions as we go. So I'm sharing the MetaTrader 5 trading application. It's the app that we use to trade. Also, if you trade on a smartphone, then you should know that we have Equity Trader application available on Google Play as well as App Store. So evening, Jason. Hello, Emmanuel. I can see Upscale in the house. Thank you for joining. Can see Kenneth Erickson. Good evening. What's the weekly forecast on pound yen? That's a good question. I'll be checking on that, Emmanuel. Which pair is the most fulfilling pair after the release of the data? That is the PPI data. Yes, I'll also be looking to answer that. So let's begin by looking at the dollar index. The dollar index is basically a measure of the strength of the dollar. For majority of last week, we didn't have much of a movement, but there seems to be signs that volatility is coming back. So having seen the dollar index largely trade sideways, I would say the overall resistance has been around this area here. And for the last 5-6 days, this has been a support. So this should be already an indicator that the dollar index is about to break downwards. So with a much weaker dollar index, remember we saw the PPI coming in weaker than expected, which means there's a higher likelihood of the Fed cutting interest rates in September, which is not good for the dollar. It's negative for the dollar. That's why we are seeing this sudden move despite having a very slow day earlier. So the way this is affecting markets, we are seeing the dollar losing to the yen, despite having, I would call it more of a muted day, where we didn't have much of an activity. And now it seems likely that we could be seeing a break. It hasn't happened yet, but if it plays out here, then it could present a nice opportunity for USD JPY traders. So you look at pound USD after the morning data regarding the job market. We saw a nice break happening on this trend line, and this is a trend line that has held true for the past couple of weeks. This is the 1 hour chart. So after the breakout, we had a pullback, and now this looks like a textbook pattern where the market makes a breakout, makes a pullback, and then goes ahead with a continuation. So in this case, this is what we're experiencing, which means that we could be seeing some much higher prices on the pound USD. So it seems likely that we will be getting to this level. This is somewhere around 1.28390, which was the previous high around this area. You can see how the markets were rejecting prices at that area. So for pound yen, we already had a question about that. Now we are seeing the yen strengthening against the dollar. It's probably also strengthening against the pound. and we are in this rising wedge where the market could potentially break towards the upper side, but also it could break towards the lower side. So the more likely bet with a strengthening yen would be a break towards the lower side and the market heading all the way back down. But then also the alternative is also true. The market could potentially breach this area and head for 92.669. So the area to observe is the price action around here, and it seems more likely from the activity we are seeing here that the market would finally be making a break towards the lower side. So it's a wait and see scenario. We don't have the answers yet, so we remain patient until we see what happens. So as for gold, gold is currently very close to hitting a new all-time high. So the last all-time high just happened about 4 weeks ago when gold traded at $2,483 per ounce. So then 2 weeks ago, we saw gold rising again, getting back closer to that area at 2,477. Then yesterday, it tested the same level, and now it's attempting to push through the area yet again. So it's more likely that we could be seeing gold testing a new all-time high. So this momentum seems to be building up nicely. So from the 15 minutes chart, this is how it looks like. So we started with a slightly bullish market. Then as we entered the Tokyo as well as the London session, the market moved down, traded sideways for a while. And now as we enter the New York session, you can see volatility is resuming towards the upside. So perhaps a retest of today's high and maybe a retest of the high we saw 2 weeks ago around 2477 might be in play here. So at the same time, if you check out the daily time frame, you'll notice that we have had some very strong bullish momentum days. And I'm talking about Thursday, Friday, and Monday. Thursday, Friday last week, Monday, which is yesterday, and today, I expect to see some form of continuation in this bullish momentum. So Brent oil seems stuck after making this strong bullish momentum. So if you go to the forward chart, then you'd notice that last week was pretty bullish. This week also started with some strong bullish momentum until we go to 81.675, which is a price level that was working as a very strong resistance, and the market seems to be struggling to break above that. So if you go to the 1 hour chart, the price action we have seen today is more of a sideways momentum. So I wouldn't be very confident about it. I would wait for the market to eventually get out of this consolidation. So let's be patient, wait for the likely direction. It could be a reversal and we go back to retest this trend line. It was the upper trend line which was broken. So a retest to this trend line might be in order. But also, judging by the strength we are seeing in the oil market, we could also be seeing a breakout. And if the breakout plays out, then we are looking at levels around 82.757. So in this case, it's likely that the market will eventually make a break, and maybe we could capture some further upside momentum towards 82.757. So for now, it's not very clear. We remain patient until we see a break outside this highlighted area. So US equity indices seems to be pretty bullish today. So we opened here at the beginning of the day, had this nice rally in the morning session, then London session decided to reverse the entire trend. Market went back downwards. And now after the PPI data, we have seen the market resume the bullish momentum, and it's about to break a major resistance area, which is the trend line we have seen over the past 2 weeks. So clearly, this trend line has been the resistance in the market, and the market is attempting further and further again to break. So the highlighted area here, the yellow rectangle, is the area we are observing to see if there is a likely break. And once the break happens, then we could be seeing the market making that big move and eventually getting to 19,228 with the possibility of a further extension higher. So we are seeing this happening across board. So for the Dow Jones, we had the same thing, but it seems to be stuck in a range. So if you're a Dow Jones trader, then you know this is one of those frustrating areas where the market is not making a big momentum, but eventually that momentum will come in. So we remain patient. And for the SP 500, we are seeing a major break coming in as the market has really struggled to break to break above this trend line, but it keeps on pushing each and every day, and we could be seeing that eventual breakout playing out. So if it happens to play out during the New York session today, then that might be ground that the SP 500 is headed for a strong rally, and we could be seeing the price going back to 55.60. So we remain patient and observe the breakout of this trend line. Whereas if you look at Bitcoin, it's trading in a triangle. So 15 minutes chart, we have a classic symmetrical triangle, which means that we wait until we see the direction of the break. So when the break happens, then that will give us an idea of a direction to take. Of course, we don't know whether it will break towards the upper side or to the lower side. So that's why we remain patient and trade what we see. So checking on one more asset I may have missed. Yes, we have the Nikkei 225 index trading on an ascending triangle. We all know this pattern here. We have seen it play out, meaning that there was a very strong wall of resistance around 35,866 price level. So this morning we saw the market breaking towards the upper side, then making the pullback in what looks like a breakout retest continuation. So in this case, we have seen the market retest the breakout point, and it's now bouncing and headed much higher. So in this case, it seems more likely that we could be seeing some further upside momentum in the Nikkei 225 index. And the likely targets could be all the way up to where the initial move started. Of course, we know that the initial move when the market was making this big crash downwards was around 38,768. So we could be seeing the market headed back to that area. So today is going to be a much shorter session, so we don't have much to cover. So hopefully we are able to identify opportunities there. So also the UK 100 or the FTSE 100 index is making a very strong recovery after having a sell-off earlier in the day. So we can see the big attempt to move back downwards where the market is now reversing. So this area has been acting as a major resistance and the market is just pushing and retesting. So if we happen to see a breakout above this line, this is around 8,234, then that could fuel more bets on a bullish recovery after the big sell-off that we saw a couple of weeks back. So in this case, we observe this resistance area, and if the market breaks, then we ride the trend higher. So I'm checking on the questions here. What's your projection on CPI tomorrow on gold? So it's likely that US CPI could continue dropping, maybe even drop below 3%, and that would be a first time in a long period of time. So if we happen to see a big drop in CPI tomorrow, then that is expected to lead to expectations of an early rate cut. So if we happen to see an early rate cut, then that should be bullish for gold, bearish for the dollar. So we will be seeing gold breaking into new all-time highs. Though right now, from what we are seeing is strong rejections of these resistance areas. So having seen the strong bullish momentum, now we are seeing a complete change in the market moving in the opposite direction. I don't know whether it's a retest and then continue, but the momentum seems to be increasing by the minute. So if you go to the 5 minutes chart, I don't know what has just happened at the open, but there's a big push downwards in gold right now. So dollar index going down, gold going down, there has to be something playing out in the markets. Hopefully I'll be able to figure this out right after the session. USD JPY we already covered. We covered this earlier in the session. Remember, the recording is live. So we are observing the lower trend line here to see the potential for a break. So if this has been the support, then we want to see a confirmation that the market is breaking towards the lower side. Then look for short selling positions. Of course, in such patterns, you target the base of the pattern. So if the market breaks, then we are going all the way down to 144.234, but that hasn't played out yet. So we remain patient on that one. So last one is USD trading against the Swiss franc. I don't know if I have the chart open. Just give me a sec. We are seeing a market that is literally looking like a flag. If you think of this big move, impulse move as the flagpole, then what we are experiencing here is some kind of a flag formation where the market oscillates for a while before making the next move, which would be, let's say, a continuation or a break. So judging from the session highs and lows from the last 2 days, it seems likely that this market is now unable to form higher highs following today's high. So if we happen to see a big break below this area here, then in that case, we might find a case for a continuation of the bearish momentum. So the area to observe is right here. If the market happens to break here, then we could be seeing some further progression back downwards. So that is it. That's it for the day. Thank you very much, guys, and I hope to see you on the next session. Also, if you're watching this on X, I would really like if you left a comment, a like, or even share with another group of traders. If you're watching this on X, I would really appreciate a like and a retweet. That would do more help in reaching other traders, getting more people to benefit from these sessions. So if you're just beginning your trading journey, you can create an account from the links in the description below. That's on YouTube. If you're on X, make sure to visit the FX Pesa handle and then register for an account from there. And thank you very much, guys. I hope to see you on the next session.